Welcome to our deep dive into the world of film and TV. You shared a really interesting industry news roundup with us, and we're going to break it all down.
I know, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
What strikes me is the sheer variety of what's happening right now. I mean, we've got AI shaking things up and studios chasing franchises, and then these amazing independent projects that are just taking a totally different approach.
Okay, let's start with the AI revolution because, I love any excuse to talk about robots.
Oh, yeah.
But I read about a company called Voia doing virtual environments with AI. That sounds pretty wild.
It is, especially because it's being positioned as like a real alternative to CGI and green screens. So
Yeah.
imagine a world where instead of all of those complex setups, you just tell the AI what environment you want and it creates it for you.
Wow.
That's the promise of Voia.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it could be huge for independent filmmakers who, might not have the budget for traditional special effects.
So it's like democratizing access to these really cool visuals.
Yes.
But how exactly does it work? I mean, is the AI writing the script too?
No, no, no. That's where the human element still comes in. Think of Voya more as a tool that filmmakers can use to bring their visions to life more easily. And what's really interesting is this isn't just one company doing this.
Right.
The FBRC.ai, which is an organization that tracks AI in the entertainment industry, says that over 65 new AI studios have popped up globally just since 2022.
Wow, 65 new studios.
Yeah.
So it's safe to say that AI is going to have a major impact on how films and TV shows are made,
Yeah.
From here on out.
Definitely.
But what about editing?
Yeah.
Can AI handle that too?
Well, there's this software called Eddy AI that uses ChatGPT, which you might have heard of.
Uh-huh.
It's a powerful language processing AI, and in Eddy, it's being used for video editing. So this means things like automated editing, where the AI can cut together scenes based on the script, and AI-driven scene selection, where it can help identify the most impactful moments in your footage.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, and it has the potential to be revolutionary, especially for filmmakers who might not have a lot of experience with traditional editing software.
Okay, so AI is creating virtual worlds, potentially editing entire films. It really makes you wonder what jobs will even exist in the film industry in a few years.
Right.
But let's shift gears a bit. I saw that you flagged The Python Hunt, which is apparently a documentary about people who hunt pythons in Florida. What's that all about?
So this documentary takes a look at the invasive python problem in the Florida Everglades and the people who are trying to manage it. And it actually won a jury prize at SXSW.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's produced by Artists Equity, a company founded by Ben Affleck and Matt Damon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, they clearly see the potential in this story, and it's directed by Xander Robin, Lance Oppenheim, and Danny Bernfeld. And it's fascinating because it's not just about the pythons themselves.
Right.
It's about, human ingenuity, the relationship between humans and nature, and the lengths people will go to protect their environment.
It sounds like it could be both intense and strangely beautiful.
Yeah.
But let's talk about something completely different, this biopic series, about Iceland's first female president, Vigdís Finnbogadóttir, a female president in the 1980s. That's pretty groundbreaking.
Absolutely. And what's even more impressive is that the producer, Rakel Garðarsdóttir, spent a decade developing this series.
Wow.
So, she's passionate about telling Vigdís's story. Imagine being Vigdís Finnbogadóttir and seeing your life's work being brought to the screen like that. It must have been an incredibly emotional experience for everyone involved.
It's amazing how film can capture these monumental moments in history and make them accessible to everyone. Speaking of compelling stories, there's also The Actor by Duke Johnson, which stars Andre Holland and Gemma Chan. You mentioned it explores themes of identity, art, and love, all set in the 1950s. What more can you tell me about it?
Well, the premise is pretty intriguing. An amnesiac actor searching for his identity in 1950s Hollywood. It's based on a novel by Donald E. Westlake, and apparently Johnson drew inspiration from the works of Charlie Kaufman.
Oh, wow.
Who's known for his mind-bending narratives.
Right.
So you can expect a lot of layers and, thought-provoking exploration of these themes.
Okay, so we've got AI revolutionizing filmmaking, documentaries about python hunters, biopics about pioneering female leaders, and mind-bending stories set in 1950s Hollywood. What a mix. Now, I have to ask, with all these independent films finding success, how are the big Hollywood studios reacting? Are they feeling the pressure?
Definitely. There's this term that's been floating around the industry, franchise fatigue.
Franchise fatigue.
Yeah, and it basically means that audiences are getting tired of seeing the same old franchises rehashed over and over again.
Right.
Even giants like Marvel, Harry Potter, Star Wars, and James Bond are starting to feel the heat.
Really? I mean, those franchises are still making billions of dollars. How can they be experiencing fatigue?
It's not that people aren't watching them anymore, it's that they're becoming more discerning.
Right.
They're looking for something fresh, something original within these established universes. Think of it like this. Imagine you're a stock investor.
Yeah.
You wouldn't just blindly buy every stock, right?
Yeah.
You'd evaluate them, see which ones have potential and which ones might be overvalued. That's what's happening with these franchises. Some, like Deadpool and Avatar, are still going strong.
Right.
But others are starting to lose their luster.
So it's less about the end of franchises and more about finding new and interesting ways to tell those stories?
Yeah.
But what does that actually look like? How can studios adapt?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
Audiences are craving novelty, depth, and maybe even a little bit of risk-taking. You know, they want to be surprised, they want to be challenged, and they want to see stories that reflect the complexities of the world we live in.
Okay, so Hollywood is being forced to think outside the box.
Yeah.
But what about the rest of the world? Are there any interesting developments happening internationally?
Absolutely. Let's talk about Tubi launching in Australia.
Tubi.
Yeah, it's a streaming service that's been making waves in the U.S.
I've heard of it.
But their Australian debut has been a bit more low-key. They're offering a more limited selection of content compared to what they have in the U.S., which is interesting because it shows how streaming services often have to tailor their offerings to different markets.
It's like they're dipping their toes in the water before diving in head first.
Exactly.
But do you think they'll eventually expand their Australian library?
Well, now that News Corp Australia is handling their ad sales, there's definitely potential for a revamp.
Okay.
They might even integrate Tubi with Sky News, which could be a game changer for the Australian streaming landscape.
It's fascinating how the streaming wars are playing out on a global scale. Meanwhile, Amazon Prime Video is making a big push into anime in Japan, which makes sense considering how popular anime is worldwide.
Exactly. And it's not just about appealing to existing anime fans.
Right.
It's also about creating new ones, especially in markets where anime might not be as mainstream.
Good.
Amazon is investing heavily in localized content, which means they're creating and acquiring anime specifically for the Japanese market. Yeah, this is a smart move because it shows that they're committed to understanding and catering to the specific tastes of their audience.
Okay, so we've got streaming services battling it out for global dominance.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's the directors and the stories they tell that really capture our imaginations.
Right.
Speaking of directors, I saw that the Russo brothers who directed Avengers Endgame have a few new projects in the works, right?
Yes, they're directing a film for Netflix called The Electric State, and they're also returning to the Marvel Universe for Avengers, Doomsday, and Secret Wars. It's amazing to think about their journey. They started with a $30,000 debut film,
Wow.
and now they're directing some of the biggest blockbusters in history.
It's proof that sometimes you just have to take a chance and see where it leads. Now, there's another director whose work I always find intriguing, Steven Soderbergh.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a new film coming out called Black Bag, which is apparently a blend of espionage and marital drama, starring Michael Fassbender and Cate Blanchett.
Yeah, what's interesting about this film is that Soderbergh was initially hesitant about the script.
Really?
He felt it wasn't quite right. But after finishing another project called Presence, he came back to Black Bag with a fresh perspective.
It makes you wonder what kind of creative evolution happened between those two projects. It's also worth noting that Soderbergh has been pretty vocal about his preference for more mature, story-driven films.
Yeah.
Which is interesting considering we were just talking about franchise fatigue.
Yeah, he's not afraid to speak his mind.
Right.
And his success shows that there's still a huge appetite for these kinds of films, even in a world dominated by blockbusters.
So maybe Hollywood isn't as creatively bankrupt as some people think.
Right.
Maybe there's hope for originality after all. But before we get too optimistic, let's dive into some of the other film and TV projects that caught our eye, because we have a lot to cover.
Sounds good. Let's talk about Brad Pitt hitting the racetrack, Iron Maiden's legendary history, and a Neil Blomkamp-directed reboot of Starship Troopers.
Wait a minute, a Starship Troopers reboot? Didn't we already get one of those? What's Blomkamp thinking?
Well, this time around, Blomkamp is going back to the original source material, the 1959 novel by Robert A. Heinlein.
Okay.
And apparently he wants to really dig into those themes of militarism and societal satire that were in the book,
Right.
which some people feel got a bit lost in the previous adaptations.
So it's not just a cash grab. He's actually trying to say something with this reboot.
I like it.
Plus, Blomkamp's known for his really visually striking sci-fi. So I'm curious to see how he brings that style to Starship Troopers. Okay, you also mentioned Brad Pitt starring in an F1 film. Is he playing a driver or a team owner or what?
He's playing a veteran driver who comes out of retirement to mentor a younger driver and take on one last race.
Okay.
Think Top Gun meets Rush
Okay.
with, high-speed action, intense rivalries, and maybe even a bit of romance.
Okay, that sounds amazing. I'm already picturing the epic racing scenes.
Yeah.
And with Joseph Kosinski directing, who also did Top Gun, Maverick, and Jerry Bruckheimer producing, they're going to deliver on the spectacle. Now let's switch gears a bit to something a little less high-octane. What's this about an Iron Maiden documentary?
It's a deep dive into the history of one of the most influential heavy metal bands of all time.
Oh, cool.
They've been rocking for decades, and this documentary is going to explore their music, their impact on a global scale, and their incredible connection with their fans.
I bet there will be tons of amazing behind-the-scenes footage and interviews with the band members. It's like a dream come true for any die-hard metalhead. And speaking of dreams coming true, there's this film called Mr. Irrelevant, starring Isabel May and David Corenswet. That sounds really interesting. It's a romantic sports drama set in the world of football, but there's got to be more to it than that, right?
You're right. The title itself, Mr. Irrelevant, is a reference to the last player selected in the NFL draft.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so you can already see that it's going to be a story about underdogs' ambition and defying expectations.
Yeah.
And with Jake Szymanski directing, who's known for his comedic timing,
Yeah.
I'm expecting a really heartwarming and humorous take on this unique premise.
Okay, so we've got racing, metal, and football all covered. What else is happening in the world of film and TV development? Anything a little darker, maybe? I love a good thriller.
As if you could read my mind.
Uh-huh.
David Cronenberg, the master of body horror himself, is back with The Shrouds, starring Vincent Cassel.
Oh, wow.
It's a psychological thriller that promises to be full of mind-bending visuals and those signature Cronenberg themes that get under your skin.
Definitely not one to watch right before bed.
No.
But speaking of things you might not want to watch before bed,
Yeah.
I saw that Sony Pictures Classics just picked up a Sundance hit called Oh, Hi, starring Molly Gordon and Logan Lerman.
Yeah.
It's a romantic comedy about a couple whose getaway doesn't go quite as planned.
From what I've heard, it's hilarious and charming with great performances from Gordon and Lerman. It sounds like the perfect antidote to Cronenberg's darkness.
Right.
And a reminder that sometimes all you need is a good laugh.
Okay, so we've got rom-coms and horror covered.
Mhm.
What about TV? Are there any juicy deals or adaptations happening on the small screen?
Definitely. CBS Studios and Propagate are teaming up to bring the dark fantasy manga Claymore to life.
Claymore.
Yeah, it's about female warriors who battle these shape-shifting demons.
Oh, cool.
So you know it's going to be full of epic action and really captivating storytelling.
Claymore sounds like it has the potential to be the next big fantasy hit. Plus, with Masaoka, who played Heroes, involved as a producer.
I have high hopes for this adaptation. And if you're in the mood for something a little more reality-based, TF1 is adapting a Norwegian format called The Box.
The Box.
It's this high-concept show where contestants are confined to a small space,
Oh, okay.
and they have to solve puzzles to survive.
So it's like a psychological thriller meets escape room challenge. I can already imagine myself yelling at the screen trying to solve those puzzles along with the contestants.
Exactly, and with the added pressure of survival.
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting to see how the contestants handle the psychological and emotional toll of being trapped.
Okay, so we've got fantasy adaptations and intense reality shows.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned reboots earlier. I saw that a new Prison Break is in the works. Are they really going to try and escape from prison again?
Well, the details are still pretty hush-hush.
All right.
But Emily Browning, Lucas Gage, and Drake Roger have been cast in the lead roles. It seems like they're introducing fresh characters while still capturing the essence of the original.
So it's not just a straight-up remake. They're trying to do something new with it. I'm cautiously optimistic. I loved the original Prison Break, but I'm always a little wary of reboots. Speaking of reboots and new takes on old ideas, NBC is developing a cheerleading comedy called Stumble that has Monica Aldama from the Netflix docuseries Cheer as a consultant.
Oh, wow. It's going to be interesting to see how they balance the comedy with the real-life intensity of competitive cheerleading,
Right.
especially with Monica Aldama's involvement.
Yeah.
It could be a fun and heartwarming show that also sheds light on the dedication and athleticism required in this sport.
And for the thriller fans out there, there's a remake of Single White Female in development with Jenna Ortega and Taylor Russell in talks to Starbacks.
I can already sense the psychological tension brewing just thinking about those two sharing the screen.
Single White Female is such a classic psychological thriller, and Ortega and Russell are both incredible actors.
Yeah.
They have this knack for portraying complex and layered
Oh.
characters, so I'm really excited to see their take on this story.
Okay, so we've got reboots, remakes, and new series galore. What else is cooking in the film and TV world? Any sequels in the works?
We'll get ready for more body swap chaos because Freaky Friday 2 is officially happening.
What?
Yeah, it's a sequel to the beloved Freaky Friday.
Oh, what?
And Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis are back to reprise their roles.
That's all. Yeah, this time the body-swapping shenanigans are expanding to include more family members.
Oh, fun.
It's going to be so much fun to see Lohan and Curtis back in action, and I'm sure they'll bring the same energy and heart to the sequel that made the original such a hit.
Absolutely. It's a classic story with a timeless appeal, and it's going to be great to see it reimagined for a new generation.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered everything from high-speed racing to psychological thrillers to heartwarming comedies to body swap sequels. It's amazing how much variety there is in the world of film and TV. But what about international collaborations? Are there any exciting projects coming out of partnerships between different countries?
There's a fascinating product called Avalanche that's being co-produced by Iceland's Glass River and Finland's whatever group.
Avalanche.
Yeah, it's a climate disaster thriller set in Iceland that follows a meteorologist who's trying to warn her town about an impending catastrophe.
Avalanche sounds like a really timely and thought-provoking series. It's a creative way to explore the very real issue of climate change through the lens of a gripping thriller. It's also a great example of how international collaborations can bring fresh perspectives and stories to the screen.
Exactly, and this is just the beginning.
Right.
We're seeing more and more collaborations between countries, which is really exciting because it means we're getting exposed to a wider range of voices and perspectives.
Okay, so far we've mostly focused on the creative side of the film and TV industry. But what about the business side of things? What kind of deals are being made and who's making moves behind the scenes? Our listeners send in some interesting articles about this, so let's dive into that.
Well, we've got Front Row Film Entertainment securing distribution rights for no other land in the Middle East and Africa,
Okay.
which is great news for the filmmakers because it means their film will reach a wider audience. We're also seeing companies like Multistory Media making strategic shifts, like focusing exclusively on factual programming, which shows the growing demand for documentaries and nonfiction content.
Speaking of strategic shifts, Cinesight, a major player in the VFX and animation industry, just secured a massive $215 million funding package. That's a huge investment in the future of visual effects, and it shows how much this industry is booming.
Visual effects are becoming more and more sophisticated and integral to storytelling.
Right.
Not just in big-budget blockbusters, but across all genres.
Right.
This funding will likely fuel innovation and push the boundaries of what's possible in filmmaking.
It's amazing to think about how technology is constantly changing the way we create and experience film and TV. But what about the people behind these companies? Are there any executive shuffles or new appointments worth mentioning?
There are a few key changes happening. Deborah Mailman and Ian Booth have been reappointed to the boards of Screen Australia and the Australian Children's Television Foundation, respectively, which is great for continuity and stability. And Matt Stanton has been confirmed as the new CEO and managing director of Nine Entertainment, which is a major media company in Australia.
It's always interesting to see how these leadership changes impact the industry. It's like a game of chess with each move shaping the landscape of film and TV.
And speaking of shaping the landscape, let's not forget about the festivals and markets where these films and series are showcased to the world. This year's Hong Kong Film Art saw a surge in international partnerships,
Okay.
highlighting the growing importance of Asian markets in the global entertainment industry.
And of course, we can't forget about the Cannes Film Festival.
Of course.
It's always a whirlwind of excitement and speculation, and this year is no different, with potential premieres from acclaimed directors like Spike Lee, Wes Anderson, and Kristen Stewart.
Cannes is a major launching pad for films and a place where filmmakers can connect with distributors, critics, and audiences from around the world.
Right.
It's a reminder of the global reach and impact of the film industry.
But amidst all the glitz and glamour, it's important to remember that there are also challenges facing the industry, like the film rebate crisis in South Africa, which is causing disruptions to international productions. It's a reminder that real-world issues can have a significant impact on filmmaking.
You're right. It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
The film and TV industry is a global ecosystem, and its success relies on collaboration, innovation, and a willingness to adapt to changing circumstances.
Okay, before we move on to our final thoughts, there are a few more intriguing developments we need to touch on. Eli Roth, the horror director, is launching his own production studio, the Horror Section, and he's inviting fans to invest.
This is a really interesting example of how technology is changing the game and allowing creators to connect directly with their audience.
Right.
Roth is essentially building a community around his studio, which is a smart move because it fosters loyalty and gives fans a sense of ownership.
It's also a potential game changer for independent horror films because it gives them a new avenue for funding and distribution. Speaking of game changers, Blackstone is exploring merger options for Reese Witherspoon's media company, Hello Sunshine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is pretty remarkable considering the challenges in the streaming landscape.
Hello Sunshine has been incredibly successful in championing female voices and producing a diverse slate of content.
Right.
A merger with another studio could give them even more resources and reach further amplifying those voices.
And finally, in a move that suggests a growing appetite for more complex and nuanced narratives, ITV has acquired Fake, a psychological true crime drama.
True crime continues to be a popular genre,
Right.
but we're seeing a shift away from sensationalism
Okay.
towards stories that delve into the darker aspects of human behavior and explore themes of deception, identity, and the search for truth.
It sounds like Fake is going to be a gripping addition to ITV's lineup. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from the rise of AI to the future of franchises to the power of international collaborations to the business deals that are shaping the industry.
It's been a whirlwind tour of the film and TV world.
It really has.
And what strikes me is the incredible resilience and creativity of this industry.
Despite the challenges, filmmakers and storytellers continue to find ways to connect with audiences and create compelling content. Now, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. With all these shifts happening, what kind of stories do you hope to see on screen in the future?
Yeah, it really does feel like we're on the cusp of a whole new era of storytelling, with all these new technologies and platforms and a growing awareness of the need for diverse perspectives.
Uh-huh.
The possibilities are endless.
Yeah, what's exciting to you about the future of film and TV?
I think what's most exciting is the potential for stories that we haven't even imagined yet. Stories that push boundaries, challenge conventions, and really make us think. And with the global reach of streaming services, these stories can come from anywhere and connect with audiences everywhere.
Yeah, that's what I love about this industry. It's constantly evolving and surprising us. Who would have thought a few years ago that we'd be talking about AI creating virtual worlds or documentaries about python hunters winning awards at film festivals?
It's amazing to see how filmmakers are finding inspiration in the most unexpected places and how technology is giving them new tools to tell their stories. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to the human element, the need to connect with others, share experiences, and explore the world around us.
Exactly. And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating. We're not just looking at a bunch of headlines and industry trends. We're exploring the stories behind those stories, the people who are driving innovation and the ideas that are shaping the future of entertainment.
And it's not just about the big names and the blockbuster deals, It's about the independent filmmakers who are pushing boundaries, the international collaborations that are bringing fresh perspectives, and the behind-the-scenes players who are making it all happen.
Like a giant tapestry woven together with threads of creativity, technology, and human connection. And we're just getting a glimpse of the full picture.
And that's what makes it so exciting. There's always more to discover, more to learn, and more stories waiting to be told.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question. What kind of stories do you hope to see on screen in the future? What voices do you want to hear? What worlds do you want to explore?
Think about the issues that matter to you, the experiences that have shaped you, and the perspectives that you haven't seen represented on screen. The future of film and TV is in your hands as viewers and as storytellers.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of film and TV. We hope you've learned something new, discovered something intriguing, and maybe even been inspired to tell your own story. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.